Hello everyone, welcome to Gardening TLC and welcome to my gardens. We are spending the next couple of weeks at my house in the garden beds, going from garden bed to garden bed, doing all of those things that you have to do in the spring to get it ready, but also assessing each of the beds and changing some things around, adding some things, planting some things, and just doing some overall fun projects in the garden. So we have quite a few gardens around the house and we're going to be hitting them one at a time. So come along with me as we check it out. I live in northern Illinois, zone 5. Our winters are crazy here. Sometimes we have really harsh winters and sometimes we have really mild winters. You just never know what you're going to get. This year, it was kind of a mild winter. Sometimes we can get temperatures down to minus 20 degrees, and I've seen them get colder. Now, we just got moved into a zone 5B from a 5A, which for me wasn't that big of a deal. I just plant zone 5. I always have, and I still am going to. Now, we are spending time in the gardens around my house. Last week, we did the sidewalk bed, and we did the bed in front of the driveway, and you can check that video out for the different things that we did in those two beds. Today, we're going to scoot around to the back of the house where the deck is, and I have kind of a unique situation back here. I had a tree that died and it came down in the middle of the bed and it created this big swath of sun in the middle of the bed, but on either side of it I still have two maple trees that produce shade. So I take full advantage of that sun, and I planted an herb garden on the upper level of this tiered wall that I put in. Then I have a second level that just has perennials in it and some openings, and then I have a bottom level that's not finished. How many of you have gardens that aren't finished? Well, I have gardens that aren't finished, and I probably will always have gardens that aren't finished because I'm a gardener and I'm forever finding new things or moving things around, or I try something and I don't like it, or it didn't work, or something died, and that's just the life of a gardener, and we just deal with it. And I guess I always look at it as opportunity to do something different or to change something in my garden. So today what we're going to do is we're going to clean up some weeds, we're going to put some fertilizer down, and I'm going to talk to you about what I use to fertilize my roses with, because one of the things that we deal with here are the dreaded Japanese beetles that eat everything. And so I'll talk to you about what I use to protect my roses. We are also going to be planting up the herb garden today. We have perennial herbs in there, but we're going to add our annual herbs. I've already potted up most of my pots, but I'll go over those with you so you can see what I did in each of those. And then we're just going to do some general cleanup. I have not 100% decided what I'm doing down in this bed, so it's not finished. I know. I hate having unfinished things, but I don't want to just slap something in there and then later I have to change it around. So I'm still kind of pondering what I'm doing with the bed. So until I figure it out, there'll be holes in the bed, and once I figure it out, then we'll fill it up. But I don't know. Let's get going. Let's start with the pots first. Now, if you check out the video that I did, the cleanup in the sidewalk, you know that I'm using salmon and corals and kind of apricots and yellows that kind of fade into purples as my color scheme this year. And so that is what I've continued with around the corner into the pots leading up to the deck. So let's check out what I did. I love these bowls. I got these in and I just was like in love the minute I got them. I love low bowls. I love to plant them and tuck them in to the garden someplace, and I just think that these turned out so sweet. Now, the star of my bowl is this double impatient. This is a silhouette salmon. It is so beautiful. I love it. I also like the wire vine that we put in here. I love the different little texture that's in there. Now, this thing right here only gets maybe 2 to 4 hours of sun, so this is the perfect combination of things to put in here. A potato vine will grow in part sun, and this is the Sweet Caroline Jet Black by Proven Winners. We also have some white Surefire begonias in here from Proven Winners. I tucked in a little asparagus vine back there, and I have a chocolate drop coleus right there that will spill over the side of the bowl. Now, I do know that I'm going to have to keep the potato vine, the asparagus fern, and that coleus in line so they don't gobble up my beautiful impatiens and begonias. I think this turned out so sweet. I love these. And as always, I'm going to collect my tags and I'm going to put them in my pot along the edge someplace so that I remember what's in this absolutely gorgeous pot. While we were at it, we knew we needed to add a little something right here, so I grabbed a hosta. This one is from Proven Winners. It is the Shadowland. I love the little ruffled edge on there, and I like the veining Can you see the veining in there? Isn't it? It's got some light green and some dark green, and then it's got that yellow edging on it. This grows in zone 3 through 9. They're gonna get 22 inches high and about 47 inches wide. So this thing will fill up this whole little corner right here. Now I grabbed another one as well, and I put it right back there in the corner, right behind these coral bells. Now these are the cherry cola coral bells. I used to have 3 and I lost one, so I'll have to get a third one and put it back in there. But that's gonna fill up that whole corner back there. And then I just have my little statue right there, and then I have one of my Rieger hostas right there. That's a bigger hosta. But I love how this whole little corner right here is looking, because if you swing over this way, there is our lemony lace elderberry. Isn't that just beautiful? Look at that chartreuse color on there. Just turned out that it's loving its spot right here in the garden. These are the steps that lead up to my deck, and I always have 3 pots. One that sits on the concrete, one that sits on step number 1, and one that sits at the top of the deck. I just use a neutral tan colored pot, but I really like them. I plant them up every year and I do something different. Last year I did a coleus in them that totally took over everything I did. It looked like this big mass of coleus coming down the steps. This year I've tried to keep it a little simpler. I am staying with my salmon color, and I'm using these beautiful salmon geraniums with a Dracaena spike in the middle, and then I paired them up with this beautiful blue. This is the Laguna dark blue lobelia from Proven Winners. Now, a lot of times lobelia has a tendency to poop out in the heat of the summer. They're saying that this will handle the heat of the summer, and I've made sure that I paired it up with things that won't gobble it up, like, you know, petunias or calibrachoas. I'm doing geraniums. And now I've given myself a little bit of maintenance because I'll have to deadhead these to keep them looking good. But I'm really excited by how awesome the color pairing of this looks together. It is like, you come around the corner and I'm like, wow, it's striking. That would be the word I would use. It's awesome. I love that blue and salmon together. Oh, I just think that that pairing is gorgeous. All right, we'll briefly talk about our flower pots that we did, and the cones, the hanging baskets, and the annual flower container marathon. Did you see that bee? That's where you can check this out, where I planted these. But in here we have the Proven Winners Super Bells. We did the yellow, which is right there. They're looking really good. We also did 2 non-Proven Winners. This one here is called Chameleon Pink Splash, and then we did a Cali Coral. And so those 3 together are looking really good in the pot. And then we did the Creeping Jenny. We did 3 different Creeping Jennies in there as our draper. So I think those are looking beautiful. Next is my favorite Sedona bowl. This is a big 48-inch across Sedona bowl. We plant this one up every year. I love doing this bowl. We did put this obelisk in it this year, and we have done the Snow Princess by Proven Winners. This is just an alyssum, but they get really big. They have great fragrance, and they are just totally awesome. We also used a blend of 2 different petunias. We are doing the Supertunia Royal Velvet with the Supertunia Saffron Finch. Now, I didn't do any vistas in here because I don't want anything to take over the pot. I kind of want this all to blend together, but see those 3 together? Isn't that great? I love it. And so we basically just did a blend of those 3 plants, and then in the middle we put a cypress. This one is the Cleopatra. And so the Cleopatra is supposed to get anywhere from 12 to 18 inches tall, and it's going to get 16 to 20 inches wide. But I think that this thing is going to be so gorgeous, and no one thing is going to overpower what's going on. I didn't do any potato vines. I'm just going to use the alyssum, the Supertunias, and the cypress. That's it. Okay, we're not finished yet, but I just have to show you this. This is so awesome. So you're coming down the sidewalk, and here's my little bistro set that I like to sit at the morning and have coffee. And I know I still have stuff out because we're not done. We've got some bulbs down here we're going to do. There's a canna, there's some dahlias. I've got some geraniums that I started from seed. I've got some other seeds that we're going to put in the ground. But look, you guys, that's my view. Isn't that beautiful? Then I've got my strawberries here. I've got my raised beds. Over here, we got a bunch of trays with some herbs that we're going to plant. We've got some echinacea we want to get in the ground. I just think that this is turning out beautifully. I just had to share it with you. Even though we're not done, we got to keep going. We've just done one little section. All right, now we are going to do some weeding, and I love to use my hula hoe. It is my favorite weeding tool. I don't have to bend over. It just scrapes right along the surface of the soil, and it gets all of the weeds out very quickly. Because I have maple trees, I have, yes, helicopters. Now, I find with helicopters, if I don't rake them up or I just kind of leave them alone, I don't get as many little baby trees as I would if I tried to rake them up. I feel like when I'm raking them up, I'm kind of like sowing some of them into the ground, and I seem to get more. Now, the other thing is when I use pre-emergent, which is what I talked about in the video where we did the first 2 beds, I use a product called Snapshot. It is a granular pre-emergent that stops new weed seed from germinating, but it doesn't stop everything from germinating because it doesn't stop little maple helicopters from becoming little maple trees. Those I either have to hula hoe them out or I have to go around and pull them by hand. Pulling them by hand, oh my gosh, my back would hurt. It would take too long, and the hula hoe is faster. So we're gonna weed next. Okay, so the weeding is done. Now I'm going to put a pre-emergent down. Now I am going to be planting some zinnia seeds and some sunflower seeds in the upper portions of this garden bed. So I am not going to put any pre-emergent there. I'm only going to put it down in this bottom section here because I don't want new weed seed to germinate. Now, when you use this product, whether you use Snapshot, Preen, or whatever pre-emergent that you're going to use, you cannot put it around your bulbs, and you can't put it anywhere where you're going to germinate seed, obviously. It does want to be watered in, and it's not a one and done. You have to reapply it like every 75 days so that it will continue to work. It's not going to stop every weed out there, but I'll tell you what, it makes my life so much easier to put this down. I know that if I don't do it, the weeds will get away from me, and the next thing you know, I'll have a nightmare on my hands, and I don't want to have to spray a post-emergent like Roundup or anything like that. So it's easier to put the pre-emergent down, water it in, and then I don't have that going on. It works great for dandelions, thistle, some of those broadleaf weeds. That's what it's the best at. In the back garden bed, I have 6 roses. I have 3 red knockout roses, which are right behind me. Then on the other side of this tall wooden obelisk, I have a pink knockout rose. In the upper section of the herb garden area of the raised wall right here, I do have a petite red knockout rose. And then I have an Oh So Easy rose by Proven Winners that is a double pink. So we get different bugs around here that like to eat our roses up. Usually around the 4th of July, Japanese beetles are hatching out of the ground. They're typically grubs that are in the ground, and they come out as Japanese beetles. They fly around, they eat a whole bunch of stuff, then they plop their butts back in the ground, lay their eggs, and then the eggs work their way back into the soil to become grubs again, overwinter there, and then they work their way back up through the soil, and the cycle starts all over again. So that is something that eats your grass. It likes purple leaf foliage. It loves roses, birch trees, all those kinds of things. So what I do is I fertilize with a Fertilizing product that is a rose and flower food, but it's got a systemic insecticide in it. And what that does is it kills the bugs that eat the roses. So the way a systemic works is you sprinkle it around the outside of your plant, you work it in the ground a little bit, and then you water it in. The roots take up that product and it goes up through your plant. So this is not something that you use on anything that you eat. You only use it on an ornamental listed item on this, label. And again, as with any chemical, make sure you read the label, make sure you use proper PPE or protective clothing when you're using it, and make your own educated choice and read the label so that you use it properly before you use a chemical. Now for me, this works great because it comes up through the plant and then it kills the bugs that are on it. It usually lasts for about 8 weeks. And what I like about it is I'm not putting something on the leaf that's going to kill my pollinators, and it's not going to wash off in the rain. And I'm going to use it on just the plants that my bugs are attacking, like my roses. So I have 6 roses here, and then I have 5 roses in other spots throughout my property. I have a birch tree that I put it around. I have a purple sand cherry that I put it around. And that's about it. Those are pretty much the ones that I see the Japanese beetles eating. So those are the ones that I'm going to try and protect. So every 8 weeks, I'm sprinkling this around the base. I use about 1/4 cup around each of my shrubs. I am a little later than normal getting this on, and I can see that something is already starting to eat the leaves. Can you see that on there? So I usually get this on probably 3 weeks before I just did. I'm just late getting everything done. It was a crazy May. The garden center has been, I don't know, I don't want to say it was busier than normal because it wasn't. It was just a different kind of busy. So hopefully now I'll stop any more damage from happening. But look, they are budded up. All right, I'm not going to be planting anything in the bottom area because quite frankly, I don't know what I want to do down there. I'll take your suggestions though. For as many designs as I've done, I just can't make up my mind down there. I don't know what my mind block is, but sometimes you know what, you have those and then you just got to think about it for a little bit. But what we're going to do next, right here, this is my herb garden. I do have perennial herbs in here. I'll kind of go over what's going on in this bed and the second level as well. Now I put 0 pre-emergent in either one of these 2 tiers here because I am going to be planting some seeds in these beds and I don't want them to not be able to germinate. And if I put the pre-emergent there, I won't get any zinnias. This is my 2-tier wall system that I put in about 5 years ago. This used to be a little skinny bed up next to the deck and then the ground just sloped down and it was grass and it wasn't even good grass at that. And you had to like mow at a 45-degree angle and I always used to think I was gonna roll over on the mower every time I was mowing it. So I'm like, take it out. So then I built the wall and kind of everything evolved from there. Now what we're going to do next is we are going to plant some things up in the 2-tier wall and finish out what is going to be in it for the year. Now this salvia here is a May night. It blooms right now in spring. It has a really long bloom time, about 5 weeks. Once it's done blooming, I will cut it back about like that to the base foliage and then it'll reflush and bloom again. Next to that, I have some Nepeta. This is the Walker's Low Catmint. And in there, I do have some alliums that are just at the end of blooming. I planted these as fall bulbs and they came up this year. And there's a few more of them up there as well. Then if you come down the bed a little bit further, you're going to see that there's a hole. We had some crocus that were here earlier, but there's nothing growing right here. I usually save this for some kind of annual. So this year, we're going to be putting in a couple dahlias down here and then some zinnias. Next to that, we have Japanese painted ferns, and then we have 3 hostas down here at the end, another hosta up at the top. When you get to about right here, this is where that part of the bed is all shade, and the sun is kind of coming right down the middle. On the second tier, I have my herb garden. I have an Oh So Easy double pink rose that I just put in a couple days ago. Next to that, we have a Munstead lavender that's just starting to come up out of the ground. We have a nice batch of tarragon here. This is a French tarragon. And all the herbs that I'm going to show you right now, these are all perennial herbs. So they came back, they're in their 3rd year. Behind that, we have some onion chives that we've already cut back. Then we have a nice little patch of lemon thyme here. And you know it's lemon thyme because one, you can like rub the foliage and it smells like lemons. But you can tell by looking at it because the edges of the leaves are yellow. So think lemon, yellow, lemon thyme. All right, then next to that, we've got some hot and spicy oregano. My husband and I both love this oregano. It adds just a little bit of punch to your dishes. Next to that is my little petite red knockout rose. And as you can see, something has totally been eating it. So I should have gotten that systemic fertilizer on there a lot sooner than I did. So hopefully what I've done will help it from being eaten anymore. All right, then if you swing down this way, we've got some more chives. And this is a garlic chive. Now you can tell you have a garlic chive because it kind of has a grassy look and it has a flat blade on here and it won't have any flowers on it in the spring. It gets its flowers in the fall and the flowers are white. Now onion chives on the other hand bloom in the spring. They have these pretty lavender flowers on them and yes, you can eat them. And the blade itself is more cylindrical than it is flat. And that's kind of how you can tell the difference between the onion and the garlic. Next to that, we have a pretty garden sage. It's just a green garden sage. And then we have an Italian oregano down here, and then just a regular English thyme. Isn't that just the prettiest green little patch? I just love it. All right, so that's everything that's in the bed right now. Some of the things that we're going to be adding to the bed are some more perennial herbs, but we're also going to be adding some annual herbs as well. So one of the things that I've been wanting to grow for a while is chamomile. So I am going to be growing a Roman chamomile, which is more like a ground cover. The foliage itself is kind of ferny looking. You can see that, and it has kind of an apple scent to it, but it gets little white flowers that come up above the foliage, and that's what you harvest when they come up. I'm actually going to plant 9 of them all down here on the end of the bed. I've been wanting this for a while. I have found that this does really well if it's got a nice patch of sun, but if I can protect it from the hot afternoon sun, it seems to do a little bit better for me. I struggle with it like scorching out if I keep it in hot sun all the time. So I had this growing in my garden beds over on the other side of the trees, and that's how I lost it. So I'm hoping that by planting it back here, I'll have a little more control over it. So we're going to put this in for sure. The other thing we're going to put in is a little more oregano. I do want to plant another Italian oregano. I find that I'm running out of oregano, partly because I'm sharing it with some people and I don't have enough to get through the whole winter. And so I'm running out usually right around the beginning of February. So I'm going to plant 2 more Italian oreganos, and I'm going to plant a Greek oregano. Now, I don't know what the difference is between the two flavor wise, but we're going to find out because we're going to grow both of them, and then we're going to kind of see, is there really any difference between the two and the flavor that they have? But we're going to be planting 1 Greek and 2 Italian oreganos. All right, and then we're going to plant some annuals. So we are going to be putting some basil in the ground. I have the Dolce Fresca basil, and I'm going to be planting 3 of these because I find that if I only have 1 and I cut it down and use all the foliage, by the time I want to use it again, it hasn't grown back up. So I like to have 3 that I'm always rotating through the cutting of. The other thing I'm going to plant is a purple. I just like the purple one. Now, you might find them in the store looking like this right now, where they're kind of leggy. So what I'm basically going to do with this is I'm going to go to the top of a fresh set of leaves, and I'm going to pinch this back. So that way it's going to bush out a little bit better, and you might be hesitant to do that, but don't be, because it will be so much better after you do this than if you put it in and it's all leggy. So I'm actually going to pinch mine back so that it's this little like that, and you can see where I pinched it right above a set of new leaves. And so I'm going to put this in the ground, and you'll see this will be nice and bushy and full instead of leggy and icky. So don't be afraid to do that. Now, the other thing, these are good leaves. I can take them inside and chop them up and use them in a salad dressing. Or maybe I'll make pizza and put them on top of the pizza. Either way, these are good and fresh. Now, the one thing with basil is don't put it in the refrigerator. It doesn't like to be cold. You keep it at room temperature. So we'll take that inside. The other thing that we're going to be planting is lemongrass. I have 2 of them. I usually use this at the area where it goes from sun to shade in between. It kind of like is the break between the 2 beds, and it grows really well there. It's kind of a mosquito repellent for you, but you can use it in cooking as well. So we're going to plant 2 lemongrasses, and this itty bitty grass, this grass is going to get 5 feet tall. You just wait and see. Now, I do have 2 raised garden beds up here, and I'll be planting some things in there as well. Also in these beds, I'm going to be planting a dahlia. Now, because I am in the salmon coral color scheme this year, I've decided to plant Miss Eileen, which is kind of an orange apricot kind of color. I don't know, I've never grown a dahlia from a bulb, but it looks pretty easy. And so we're gonna grow 2 of these. That was all I had over at the garden center, so I grabbed 2 of those. I'm also gonna be planting 2 cannas. So I grabbed the Picasso canna. Isn't that cool looking? So we're going to put that in the bed as well. And I have some echinacea that I want to get in the ground up here. We're going to do the Pow Wow Wildberry. Now, this is a perennial here, and it grows in zone, if I can read the tag, 3 through 8. This guy is a little bit shorter, only 18 to 24 inches tall. It's got a smaller flower on it, but it's got this really intense purple. Then I'm going to pair that up with a white, and I'm going to do the Pow Wow White. So I'm going to do both colors. And I have 3 of each, and the white is also 18 to 24 inches tall, 12 to 16 inches wide. And they say they'll grow in sun or part shade, but I'm going to put both of the echinaceas in the bed as well. We're going to blend that with the cannas, the dahlias, and the herbs that we're putting in. We've got 2 beds to fill. And then we are going to be planting some geraniums. Now, I started these geraniums from seed, and I screwed up. So I started them, I had them all labeled, and then when I potted them up to the next size up, I mixed them all up. And some of these are scarlet and some of these are salmon. I don't know which is which. we're going to plant them all. And probably what's going to happen is when I figure out, like when they start blooming, the red ones are going to be so, I don't know, out of place. I'll dig those up and probably gift those to somebody or move them someplace else, maybe out to the cottage garden, and just keep the salmon ones in the ground. But I just don't have the heart to waste them. So we're going to plant them and see what comes up, and then we'll figure it out from there. And last but not least, we will be planting some calendula. I harvest the flowers on the calendula, but calendulas are also a host plant that attract aphids. And so this keeps my garden clean by planting the calendula. I am also going to be planting from Renee's garden some knee-high sunflowers called music box. So we'll put these up here too. That's going to be really pretty. So these are only supposed to get 2.5 feet tall. Won't that be nice? And they'll germinate in 8 to 10 days, and we should have flowers. It doesn't really say, but most sunflowers are 55 to 65 days, somewhere in there. So I'm thinking that we'll probably have flowers then by August. Won't those be pretty? Okay, so those are short sunflowers. And then I'm going to do an apricot blush zinnia. I'm going to scatter some seeds of those in there. Zinnias are so easy to grow, and they're so beautiful, and goes with my color scheme. I haven't decided if I'm going to put the nasturtiums in the ground, because do I want nasturtiums? They are a great host plant, but they freely seed everywhere. So I haven't 100% committed. Yes, no, yes, I don't know. I might or might not put these in the ground. I might chicken out. Okay. Then I have a hyacinth bean, and I'm going to plant this up my wooden obelisk. So I'm going to plant one bean at each of the 4 corners, and hopefully one of them takes and grows. I was careful when I was spreading my pre-emergent not to put it around the base of the obelisk. All right, so let's get planting. Sunflower music box. Oh, I don't know. I probably have 25 or 30 seeds. We are just going to scatter them, and then we're going to top them with land and seed compost. And I'm going to do the same thing with the apricot blush. And that's what I did last year in the garden beds in front of the store, and it worked really good. So I'm going to do that same thing here, and hopefully they grow. So let's scatter away. I didn't chicken out. I did plant the nasturtiums, but I put them in this bed right here. Now, the seeds could still get away and go other places, but at least I've kind of controlled it for now, so I put them right there. I also got the chamomile planted all at the end down here. Pretty excited about that. We put some of the echinacea right there. We also dotted just the geraniums throughout the whole garden bed. We got our basil in here. I put one right there, and then one right there, and one right there. So I have 3 basils in here. We have one of our lemongrass right down here that'll fill in, and then I scattered seeds of zinnias, the sunflowers, and some more calendula, just like down in this area right here, and a few of them over in here. So hopefully those will all come up. We put the other 3 echinacea right there. So yes, I'm so glad that this is done. So we'll clean up the hosta garden, and then after that we'll work on the renovation that we did the design for this winter in this area in the backyard. I can't wait to do that. I've already been gathering all my supplies so that we can get that installed, and check, that one will be done, and it'll be fabulous because it'll give me winter interest and not just perennials plopped in the ground, which is basically what I've done in that area. So that's all I've got for today, you guys. All cleaned up. I love it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Bye.